Welcome to Pet Sitter Confessional. Today, we're brought to you by Time to Pet and Pet Perennials. Dog behavior is a topic that we actually encounter as pet sitters and dog walkers way more than we may actually consider. And there's been a lot of changes in how to handle behaviors with dogs and how we react to them and we respond to them, and the resources and teachings out there as well for pet parents that we need to get them connected with. We're super excited to have Fanna Easter, owner of Positive Pooch Behavior, on the show to talk about what do we do in those situations? How do we engage and respond to anxious, separation anxiety, reactive dogs in the actual visits, because we don't always have all the time in the world. So, Fanna, super excited to have you on the show. Had the immense pleasure of seeing you speak again at the Texas Pet Sitters Association conference. For those who haven't been able to see you talk or know about your work, can you please tell us a bit more about all that you do?
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be here. Yes, I'm already getting excited to talk about all the things. But first off, I'm Fanna Easter. I live down in South Louisiana, hence the accent. I have been in the dog training or training dogs for like over 30 years. So yes, I'm one of those old ones. I have multiple certifications because I do believe that certifications and proving your knowledge is important, but I can have all the certifications in the world. But what gives me the most street credit is that I have bull terriers. So yes. I specialize in separation anxiety and compulsive disorders and the really, really tough cases. I love that stuff.
Well, and what our listeners don't know is that you have an amazing hair color that they really can't appreciate, and it's awesome. So, bull terriers and an amazing hairstyle. So we've got it all in one complete package here, Fanna.
Yes, it's various shades of blue. I always joke and say it's a mood ring. It just depends.
Well, that's fascinating to think of just what you would do in this way. Wait a minute, hold on, run away, come back with a different hair color. Like, okay, let's engage. Well, so speaking of behaviors, you do focus on those tough cases, and one thing that I wanted to start off by asking you about was really the difference between anxiousness and separation anxiety, because I know as a pet sitter, that's one word that I hear so often these days. As a pet owner will say, can you take care of my pet? I need you to stay with them 24/7 because they, quote, have separation anxiety. So that we can start having that conversation and maybe help educate people, from your perspective, Fanna, what's that difference between an anxious dog and separation anxiety?
Absolutely. To break it down, anxious is its own animal. It's basically the way the dog is responding to their environment. And the word separation anxiety is just where the anxiety is happening, right? And the way I like to explain anxiousness is, because I think it's a buzzword right now, especially after the pandemic, is that anxiousness it stems from fear. It's a symptom of fear, right? Fear, something falls and scares you. Anxiousness is always looking and assuming something is going to fall and scare you. That's the difference between fear and anxiousness. And anxiousness does develop when the dog is chronically fearful. Now, you take this anxious dog that's learned that scary situations make them anxious, and then you can address it to separation anxiety or reactivity towards other dogs or people and things like that. Separation anxiety, especially after the pandemic, so many well-meaning people have so many definitions. But really, separation anxiety is considered a medical disorder, and it is a panic attack. It's just like a panic attack in humans. The dog is unable to stay home alone. And it's not that they're scared, people aren't going to come home. They don't know what to do when they're home alone. They just don't know what to do. So they panic. And it is gnarly. I will tell you, I would rather work with, I wouldn't say I love separation anxiety, but I can get quicker results with a dog aggression, human aggression, and compulsive disorder. Separation anxiety is a beast. It's a beast. So use that term loosely. This is not this is not a disorder that people want with their dogs. Trust me.
Well, and I love how you even walked through some of the language there of you said it's not that they're worried or scared that their people aren't coming home, it's that they don't know what to do with themselves. Because even that is starting to make a fine line and distinction in people's brains. Because I know people will say, oh, my dog loves me so much. They just love me so much. They don't like it whenever I leave.
Oh, humans. Oh, humans. We want that so bad, don't we? And what's interesting is when I work with people with dogs with separation anxiety, when we start to teach the dog that you can go in another room or you don't have to panic, when your person leaves, people really take it hard. They're like, oh my gosh, do they not love me anymore? And I'm like, I know. It's like you've got to teach the person. And it's funny because my partner is a human mental health clinician. And so he helps me navigate this piece. But it's hard to teach people to know your dog still loves you, but you need to function by yourself too without your dog panicking. So it's a whole dynamic. It's a whole big dynamic. I love it, though. I love it.
It is, and that's an aspect of this too. Of going, it's a holistic thought process working through this, and it is very touchy because you're right when people say that, like in some instances, the owner can love the fact that their dog responds this way because they love coming home and seeing the dog, the excitement, the wiggles, the happy peas, the spinning, everything. It feeds them and their emotions as well, and so for us to come in and say, no, right? It's an attack against them at the personal level, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And usually when people get me involved, because it is very self-reinforcing to the human that their dog loves them to that extent. But once they understand why the dog is doing this, then it makes more sense. But it's an interesting dynamic. But usually people bring me in when neighbors are complaining about the barking, or the dog is starting to self-harm or harm their environment, which is the house. But it's so interesting. It's so complex and it's so emotional. Oh my goodness. I can tell you, clients, I tell them, I said, one thing I can guarantee you is you're going to cry.
Oh.
It's very, very, very emotional.
Well, so let's say we do get that phone call from a client who says, I'm needing help with this. Again, from a pet center perspective, somebody says, I need you to, because one thing that happens for us, Fanna, is they say their dog has separation anxiety. They quote unquote can't be left alone. So I need you to stay with me 24/7. If that's not a service that we offer, how can we start having a conversation with them? Maybe some good questions that we should ask to start finding that line, and maybe other resources to know, okay, I need to refer out or I need to get them connected with something else.
First off, I want pet sitters and dog walkers to know that behavior consultants like me, we are there for you guys. And I don't want you to have to navigate these difficult conversations by yourself. So if you get to a rut and you're not sure, definitely reach out to folks. You can email me. I'd be more than happy to answer. But I would say the biggest thing is, first question I ask is when a guardian is like, hey, this is what's going on. My dog has separation anxiety. Have you spoken to your veterinarian about it? That's the first step, because with separation anxiety, probably 90% of dogs need to be on some type of behavior medication because it is a literal panic attack, right? Then the second piece is, okay, so if you've not talking to your vet or you have you contacted a certified separation anxiety trainer? Because this is not a walk that you can do alone. And because it really negatively affects your quality of life. And then you can kind of see from there. I don't want to put the burden on pet sitters to say, well, what happens? What goes on? I don't want you guys to be able to determine that, because that's a slippery slope. I would say we toss it over to someone like me or other CSATs. We offer free discovery calls and we can determine if it's settings or not and kind of go forward from there. And then put a protocol together for pet sitters. But yes, I hope I answered your question in a roundabout way, but
yeah, it is a hard discussion to have, especially when we're sitting there and, we may know, okay, this is a medical diagnosis. There may be signs here to have that conversation. But ultimately, if it is truly that, or if they are needing a diagnosis for this, or they are struggling with this, we need to rope in a whole lot more people to make it part of that team, right? I'm going, okay, me just saying I'm going to be there for 24/7 hour service, like That because at the end of the day, that's not really addressing the problem. And I think that is where we can kind of stumble sometimes of if this owner is truly struggling with this, how can we actually truly address this and manage it in a healthier manner and get to the root of this instead of just putting band-aids on it? Because up until this point, the owner's band-aid may have been, I never leave. I never go anywhere. And now all of a sudden, my uncle in California has died and I need to get on a plane ride and I'm going to be gone for 3 days. Oh no, right? So it's going, let's actually work on addressing this as opposed to just putting band-aids over it.
Exactly. It's called management in the dog world. And management does work, but it eventually does fail to your point of, oh my gosh, there's a death in the family and I have to go. I think, being able to not to suspend absences, which means not leaving the dog home alone, it's a great idea. And we're able to get traction and teach the dog what to do instead. But you have to do both. Yep. Just suspending absences of never leaving the dog home alone, but not teaching the dog what to do when home alone during controlled, missions. That's the key. That's the key. And if a dog has to be left home alone, I cannot stress this enough. Some guardians are like, I have to work. Go to your veterinarian and give the dog behavior medication so they don't panic home alone. That's the first thing. Don't walk, run.
Well, and I know there are there's some viewpoints on medications and feeling like, because again, this is an emotional aspect of, I don't want a quote unquote medicated dog. I don't like seeing them that way. I don't like but understanding, okay, we're actually are, like you said, managing quality of life for both dog and person at this time. And it is a yes and of going, how do we pull all of these things together, these resources together to make sure that this is manageable and workable. And I think another part of this too, Fanna, that I know you've talked about before, is just it can be consistent with what that person's trying to get to.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, it's a tough conversation. And I never want to judge the guardian because I really do think they're doing the best they can with what they have. And sometimes guardians feel, well, I'll just put the dog in a crate and the dog is safe. But what is safe? The dog is still drooling, pawing. They're into purchasing one of these Alcatraz crates where they can't escape, right?
Yeah.
And so I had a client. She's like, well, the dog's in a crate. He's drooling, he's pawing, but he's safe. And I'm like, well, do you think you would maybe possibly talk to your veterinarian about medicating? And she's like, well, I don't know if I want to do that. But the dog is now panicking so long and so much in his crate that he's grinding down his teeth to a pulp. And I'm like, what is the quality of life for the dog? So sometimes we have to remove ourselves out of that picture and think of what's best for the dog. So yeah, it's very, very, very complicated.
So in that complication, I know, so let's maybe a situation here. Let's say we're working with a client who is working with a certified behaviorist and they're working with some medications, and our role now is to come in the middle of the home to let that dog out to go pee. Maybe walk us through some things we need to be considerate of, watchful of while we're in that home with a dog that may know is in management of true separation anxiety, so that we know when to alert people if there's a problem, or how we can be consistent with that person.
I think with separation anxiety, usually if you guys are coming in and the dog's hopefully, there's behavior medication on board, the dog should be alert. The dog should meet you at the door. Or in a crate, the dog should come out of the crate easily, go to the bathroom and potty. You should not see any drooling, pawing, blood. Yes, I'm the one that gets all those pictures. And the dog should still, as we say down here in the South, have their joie de vivre, that little essence of happiness, but they're able to settle a lot faster. That's the appropriate amount of behavior medication, and that's what you should look for. If you see a dog that's not getting out of their crate, their little tongue's hanging out, something's up, then definitely reach out to the guardian for sure.
Yeah, and that takes us having those conversations beforehand, because again, we're now trying to manage and through this entire process of going, what's new baseline, right? Like what we've hitting peaks, we're hitting valleys, we're trying to maybe manage, they may be working through. Again, we've talked about that complicated facet of all of this, of they're working on different techniques with their trainer and behaviorist. They're working on different medications with their vet, and the whole team's working together. We are extra eyes, ears, hands on site on this. We're giving reports on what we're seeing. And so then we need to be educated on that stuff as well, too, so that we know what language to use appropriately and really, like you said, when to reach out for more help.
Absolutely. And if you're not sure, reach out to the guardian, because I can tell you, I know my side. I know the veterinarians, we really do make sure that the guardians know, hey, this is what you should look out for. So if you're like, I don't know, is this normal for this dog? Ask the guardian. That's the best place. They're kind of the central of everything. And then you can kind of say, like, they're like the little central piece, and we're all the little spokes that kind of feed into the guardian. So they're the most knowledgeable and probably the easier to access.
Yeah, and that's where, we have that immense power of having photos and videos, and we can do FaceTime, or we can do things through WhatsApp, or we can get real-time touch points with the client when we're in the home to show those observations, because we're helping document that when we have concerns. I've been in those situations where it's like, I don't know how to describe this in 3 sentences. So video time, right? Like, it's like, and it really helps that process a lot.
It does. And it helps people like me too, So maybe the guardian can send it over to me, and I can take a peek in between clients and say, okay, this is what I'm seeing, And I can tell you too, as a guardian, and I love my pet sitter. I worship her. I will move my whole vacation, flight, everything to accommodate her. And so when she's noticing little things like that, it just reinforces me that how much I love her. So yes, I can totally, I would absolutely say sending texts and emails and video is, guardians will love you for that.
Well, I know we've been kind of talking back and forth again. Maybe we've hit on a few of these already about the anxiousness, separation anxiety. I did want to give an opportunity to talk about maybe some misconceptions that you see people have around those, and really what are maybe some unfortunate impacts that those have on the outcome of working with the dog and the person.
I would say, even let's take a higher level, instead of just focusing more on separation anxiety, I would say anxious behavior in general, because that's a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah.
I think that there is a misconception, and I know when I was at the Texas Pet Sitters Conference, there was a really good question, and it kind of hit home with me, and I kind of want to bring this back, is when you're dealing with anxious behavior, you really need to address the root cause of what's causing the dog to become anxious. Never assume, because there are people out there that say, well, we'll just teach the dog an obedience skill to tackle this anxiousness. And that's really not addressing the root cause. It's more of a distraction. My example is if you're scared to be home alone, and if somebody says, oh, go and lay in the recliner for an extended amount of time, does that really stop the negative thoughts in your head? No. So that's the difference between obedience and behavior. Behavior addresses the root cause of that anxiousness. So I would say definitely that's a good thing to remember, instead of placing in a crate or a downstay and things like that. Address the cause, or it will never go away. It'll always linger.
Because it is easy for us, and I find myself doing this too, of just kind of throwing out these kind of flippant suggestions, right? Of like, oh, you're having this, well, just do this, right? And we have to be hyper aware of, are we just maybe prolonging the presence of this through those suggestions without really internalizing that, doing our research, getting help, getting those tools and resources pulled together, so that when we are making those, or when we're talking with a client, like, we are actually understanding what's going on. Because a lot of things like, oh, just have white noise, just use a lick map, just use these things, just, it's like, well, are we just making a broader, like you said, like, it's kind of like this broader, like, environmental kennel, right? We're just going to build this big kennel around them and keep them more and more protected without actually addressing the true anxiousness of that.
Exactly. Management has its place. It's managing the behavior. It's preventing it from happening, right? It has its place, but it's not sustainable. So, you can only provide so many licky mats, and you can only toss so many treats. If the behavior is not improving, address it.
Have you heard of Time to Pet? Susan the Pet Gal has this to say.
Time to Pet has helped us grow exponentially. We believe the platform's features make us by far more professional than other companies who use conventional dashboards. They are the software gurus constantly developing and improving the platform based on user feedback. This decision was a good one.
If you're looking for new pet sitting software, give Time to Pet a try. Listeners of our show will save 50% off your first 3 months by visiting timetopet.com/confessional. So does that mean that you, from your perspective, Fanna, do you go into that and put the dog in different situations to see what the triggers are? Or how do you go about addressing or finding that root cause?
That's a good question. I've been around the block enough that I don't need to see what the behavior happens in that situation. I already know. So many clients are like, oh, let me show you. Let me expose my dog to its worst fear so you can see his reaction. I'm like, no. I already know. I'm good. So what that is for me, it's just asking open-ended questions and digging through to find out what the cause is. A lot of I'm the same way. I mean, there's my mama, my doggy mama brain and my dog trainer brain, right? And my mama brain always wins out the dog trainer brain. And sometimes guardians are like, they get superstitious. It's this, it's that. And when I wear my red shoes and my blue shirt is when separation anxiety is worse. And I have to navigate through all of those things to find out really what the trigger is. Yeah. And then I know, and once I know what the trigger is, then we can start the behavior mod program.
Yeah, those superstitions they're so sticky, aren't they? They're so sticky. And we talked with people and they're on their third, fourth dog, they've had dogs for 30, 40 years or whatever. And they are still impacted by that very first dog who the one time they shut the door, did the thing. And now it's like, it's amazing how long this, and I can't even imagine the kind of things that you hear that people try.
I spend a lot of time convincing people that it's not separation anxiety. And I have some clients that are adamant and namely, this is not something you want. There's nothing I love more in the world as telling somebody it's not separation anxiety because this is not what you want, So, but I think it's just, and once you have to navigate that conversation, sometimes multiple times, and explain why it's not the triggers are different, then it sinks in, and then we can address the behavior.
Yeah, and it is breaking through those barriers and those misunderstandings, right? Because being patient with them through those conversations, right?
There's emotion there. It's emotion. That's why they're becoming superstitious. That's why they're getting nervous. It's just emotion. And once we can kind of work through that, then we're good. I'm the same way with my dogs. That's why I have to hire a behavior consultant because I don't see clearly. My mama brain's in and I'm superstitious too. And my friends are like, yeah, Fanna, that's not it. I'm like, are you sure? And they're like, no.
But the one time with the thing and the stuff, come on.
And then with somebody like me, I'm like, it could be this. And I don't, what is it, the old saying, when I hear hoofbeats, I think zebras, not necessarily horses. So.
Right. Well, and I know another big aspect that you've talked about, and actually your presentation was on a lot of this at the most recent conference, was really on a lot of, you talked more about reactivity, aggression, some more anxiousness involved in that. So those two big words there, I just said, reactive, aggression. From your perspective, again, Fanna, talk to us about the differences between those.
They're majorly different. Reactivity is an overreaction to a situation. Sometimes we can call it big feelings, right? Yeah. For a situation, it's I'm the same way. That's probably why I do well. It's like I see something and I make a mountain out of a molehill, basically. That's more of what reactivity is. Aggression is how a dog can respond to a threat. Two totally different things. Aggression is more of, I'm going to defend myself and I'm going to stop whatever's going to hurt me or what I perceive as a threat. Aggression is a label that's tossed around within our industry way too much. And dogs have been labeled and unfortunately have faced these consequences of us just throwing that word out. It is a symptom of a behavior. It is not a label, aggression. So reactivity, aggression, two totally different things.
When you talk about it, it does get thrown out a lot. We encountered we had a client who took their dog to a groomer, and they said, in the paperwork they said something about aggression. Well, they were thinking reactivity, and they got these mixed up. They said aggression, and then they were blacklisted from that groomer because they don't take aggressive dogs, obviously for their safety. But then they had a really hard time getting back into any other groomers because they all talk, right? And now trying to convince somebody of like, no, it's not aggression. It's, leash reactivity. It's this other stuff was a real struggle. And there was that damage of that language, right? And we can really do a lot of damage to both a client and their pets and the public perception when we start using that word aggression inappropriately.
I rarely, if ever, say aggression. The only one that I would trust to label aggression would be a veterinary behaviorist. I think there are behavior, but when you think about aggression, dogs have a right to take up for themselves. I think that's something we forget. We think, well, I'm going to trim your nails and you're going to like it. And the dog's growling and snarling because they don't like it. And they're basically saying, please stop. Mm-hmm. We would do it too if we were scared. So think of it that way. Dogs, it's such a small percentage and over the 30 years, but dogs don't walk around trying to figure out who they can just beat up and be aggressive to. Maybe they have an appropriate play style, but if dogs start fighting or people, that's because they just don't know anything better. They just don't know what to do instead.
Right. Well, and so on that reactivity, maybe we'll dive into that just a little bit more as far as common types or what that looks like kind of from the outward perspective of us looking in.
Reactivity is a dog. Let's talk about sound phobia. Maybe a dog that's scared of sounds. That's a dog that startles super easily, maybe drops to the ground, looks around hypervigilant. Where did that sound come from? And they don't recover fast. Doesn't recover fast means it takes them over 30 seconds to several minutes to recover, which means that they go back to baseline of just being their normal self of being able to not be stressed. But then again, what are the cortisol levels? See, I could go down a rabbit hole in this. Even though the dog is like, okay, I think I'm better, their cortisol levels are probably through the roof. But that's reactivity. They are the dog that you walk into a home as a pet sitter, you reach down to pet them, and the dog takes off running, barks, and then comes back. That conflicted behavior. Like, I want you to pet me, but I'm not sure. Bark, 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 bark. It's almost an overreaction to any situation of them being worried is kind of what it is.
I know one that gets thrown around a lot in the dog walking world is the word leash reactive. And, and having those conversations, that's always funny with some clients when, we may take them out on a walk and we come back and we say, I think you may have a little bit of leash reactivity here. And the response generally, Fanna, is almost always, well, they love the leash. They're not scared of it.
Isn't that funny? They're like, it's the leash's fault. Leash reactivity is a beast. And I'm going to say it, and dog trainers and behaviorists will probably be like, oh my gosh, whatever. I would say my world has most definitely contributed to leash reactivity because many times we would say you have to socialize your dog, which means they have to meet 100 new people and 100 new dogs. That pendulum swung too far. Now, separation anxiety is teaching a dog how to react in a situation safely and comfortably and be able to process through. But we got to a point that we're like, you have to meet this person, that dog. And the dog's like, I don't want to. They can't get away. So then now they're reactive. My thing is, when you go to the grocery store, do you go up to everybody in the grocery store and say, hey, I'm Fanna, how are you? You don't, right? Socially accepted. You push your little buggy. Yes, we say buggy down here in the South. You push your little buggy and you give room. You let people move out the way. You push your little buggy. If you're in line, you talk. If not, you smile and you move on. That's all dogs need to know, how to navigate the world. They don't have to shake hands because when you put them in that situation, they can't get away. They're going to become aggressive because I don't want to. I'm scared.
Yeah. They're trying to communicate that this situation is not okay with me. And right. And I think too often you're right. We or the owners can say, come on now, you need to be okay with this. You need to be, and at the end, it's going, no, they do have a right. And we are their guardians, whether their guardians are not there. We're advocates for them in those situations.
Absolutely. And dogs should have choices. I mean, they don't have choices. We choose when they eat breakfast. We choose when they go out unless they ask. We choose who they get to meet. And dogs should have a choice. If a dog's like, you know what, I don't want to go say hi to that dog, or I don't want that person to come over and pet me, just look at the owner and, and say, you know what, or the person say, you know what, he's just not feeling it today. As a pet sitter, I would not just let people randomly come up and pet a dog. You can just smile and walk the other way.
Yeah.
The dog will thank you for it. Give them choices and magic will happen in their behavior.
It's building that trust, right? Yeah. We work on training with our staff of, you're just going to smile and you're going to say, no pets today, no pets today, big smile. And you're going to nod your head and you're going to walk the other way. Because if we do say, oh no, they're reactive, or no, they're aggressive, like all of a sudden, like we're going to get into a whole ball of wax here. We just need to keep moving. And we've had a few people who've been very insistent who have tried to reach down and pet the dog. I'm really close to just having like a picture from a hand reconstructive surgery on my phone to show people and be like, no, thank you. We're good here. Right? It just really, guys, we need some space here. Right?
It becomes a challenge to the people. Oh, dogs love me. And they're just like adamant that they're going to prove that dogs love them. I tell my clients that if you're, someone's, really wants to pet your dog, I say we're training and I put my hand up. And for some reason, it stops people in their tracks because we've conditioned people to service dogs. You don't pet service dogs. Then the question comes out of, well, what are you training for? Make something up. One that works really well and people will run from is cadaver dog. Yes. You can walk a cute little Frenchie and say he's a cadaver dog in training. People get grossed out and run. You're like, oh, okay, ew, and they're gone. Teenagers, drug detection. They're gone. They're gone. Make something up. And that seems to work, and it prevents that awkward human exchange of no, go away, don't touch, but I can. It just breaks that ice, and that way your neighbors don't think you're crazy. You have a dog your little Frenchie is trained to find dead people.
Find dead people. I'm taking some notes right now, Fanna. This is
And it's very rewarding to you when you get to see their facial expression. So, yeah.
It is about us guarding that and really viewing that interaction as very impactful for that dog, because we have to understand that a dog's life and learned behavior is a culmination of multiple experiences. And as you've already pointed out too, sometimes that dog feel like it has no other choice but to do something, or but to react, or but to lash out. And we need to go, when we respect these signals, these signs, the dog doesn't really, learn to get to that point and shortcut that progression of communication.
Exactly. I always say, puppies don't come with a little USB port where we can just kind of put in and do download of these are all the human behaviors that you should be okay with. No, that's socialization. And then that's where food comes in, or treats, or play, or whatever it is, to reinforce that this makes good things happen. And as the puppy or the adult dog or the adolescent dog maneuvers through situations, they learn this is safe. That's socialization in essence. And they have a choice. And you will back them up on that choice.
What are some common things that you see that people do because they think it's going to help or alleviate that reactivity, those responses, but they actually don't, or are not actually getting to the core of the issue there?
I think probably the biggest thing I see is ignoring it, or it's like the two polar opposites: ignoring it, thinking it'll go away, or thinking that if I just put the dog in the situation, he will get over it. And we call that flooding. And that's a dog that doesn't like other dogs, so I'm going to bring him to the dog park. This is the dog that doesn't like other people, so I'm going to bring them to a Mardi Gras parade. This is the dog that doesn't like sounds, so I'm going to bring them to a festival. That is flooding. That is like somebody you don't know how to swim and someone's throwing you into the deep end to figure it out. It is traumatic. It is traumatic, and it will blow up every time.
especially when the owner or whoever's working with the dog thinks that, oh, the problem's like the barking, right? The problem is the barking. So I'm going to do something to inhibit the barking in that situation so that they just learn to suppress that and be okay there, right? It's like, so there's so many different levels there where people truly don't understand what the issue. And instead of, because a lot of people think, like you started off talking about, my dog needs to be okay at the festival. My dog needs to be okay going to the fairgrounds or going to Mardi Gras or going to the big dog park. They need to be okay with that because look, all the other dogs, they're perfectly fine. Why isn't my dog like that? So I'm going to make them be that way.
You guys, that doesn't exist. I'm older, so I know Lassie. I don't know if you guys know Lassie. Lassie does not exist. I don't see Lassies. I've never seen a Lassie. We call them bomb-proof dogs that can pretty much take anything.
Yeah.
Again, we circle back to choices, right? If the dog does not want to be at the farmer's market or whatever, it is the dog's choice. And that is okay. That is okay. And I once had a client that purchased a dog to go and play with other dogs at the lake. And the dog hated it and was attacking other dogs. And the gentleman had a rough time. And he actually wanted to rehome this dog and was adamant that we teach the dog that they have to be okay in it. And I'm like, It's not going to ever work. It's like teaching somebody that an introvert that's like, I don't want to go to parties, but I'm going to make you go to parties. That's not fair to that person. And it shouldn't be fair. We shouldn't put a dog in that situation. And to circle back around, we get stuck on the barking. That is not the cause. The barking, it's the panic of being in the situation. The barking is the symptom.
Yeah, I see that all the time where people have a dog that's barking and they think, oh, I'm just going to do XYZ, right? Insert name of tool, whatever, right? And go, that'll stop them, right? That done. Problem solved, right? And what the dog has learned now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Fan, is just like, okay, well, I can't bark. What else can I do in this situation? Right? Yeah, exactly.
I'll bite because now you've basically taken the warning system off and you've inhibited that dog. And the thing about punishment is, and I know, my gosh, you want to rile people up. You talk about punishment and dog training. I'm an old crossover trainer. I've been here long enough that I used to use other training methods. In the 90s, I switched over. And so I know both worlds. I'll never go back to the older methods. But I really do believe that punishment is out of desperation. People just want it to stop. But the thing with punishment is it's very reinforcing to the person who's doing the punishing, not to the punisher. Right? So if you're frustrated and you're punishing the behavior that it's because you're just like, it's gotta stop. You're to that point. And when you're to that point, you have to stop and rethink because you're reinforcing your behavior and you're just taking it out on that dog.
Oof. You talk about deep psychology of what people do and why that comes from, of going, before I do something, let me check my motivations. Before I engage in this, where am I coming from? Is this purely an emotional response? Am I, I don't know, reacting out of this, and just like I'm trying to, because then you're never really getting to that point on either of you.
You're just both spinning out of control. And so when someone comes to me and says, I'm using these kind of training devices, I don't judge because I'm like, they're to the point. So let's see if we can make some things a little bit easier. And I think that's probably why I get worked up when I see people that promote these different training methods. And it's like it's not, punishment will not stop the behavior. It will not. It will suppress it. I always say it's like getting a speeding ticket. You get a speeding ticket, what happens? If it's a gnarly speeding ticket, you slow down for a little while, right?
Yeah.
You're like me. Then you start to speed up and then you slow down where you get the ticket. And then after a while, if you don't get a ticket again, you just speed right back up. It does not change the behavior, it suppresses. So why put your dog through something like this if it's not going to permanently change the behavior?
Our friends at Pet Perennials make it easy to send a heartfelt condolence gift directly to someone with a broken heart. They have this awesome direct-to-consumer gift model that takes the effort off of us and ensures a thoughtful, personalized sympathy gift reaches our client or employee on our behalf. All their gift packages include a handwritten card, colorful gift wrap, and shipping fees across the U.S. and Canada. They also offer an array of milestone gifts and greeting cards that can be sent to celebrate birthdays, extend get-well wishes, and welcome new or rescued pets. Additionally, there are gift choices in case you need to send a sympathy gift in memory of a special human client or celebrate a pregnancy, engagement, or wedding of a pet lover. If you're interested, register for a free business gift perks account to unlock the all-inclusive discounted package prices. The service is used on an as-need basis, so there are no monthly or annual obligations or minimum purchases. Learn more at petperennials.com. Check out the business programs or register for that free gift perks account by using the link in the show notes. Well, and at the core of all this is observing and watching that dog. We've talked about its communication, and really that's a lot of body language that dog is using. For us as pet sitters and dog walkers, what body language do we need to be hyper aware of or be observant for, when, especially in the context of reactivity, anxiousness, these things, because we do see those a lot when working with them and in the home.
I would say that, and I'll talk about human and dog. Dog first. Dog behavior, if they're reactive, is anything quick, moving fast and away. If a dog is just running away, moving away, barking, body, ears back, that is dog that is uncomfortable. And then I think the one that confuses most people is a conflicted behavior. Hi, pet me. You've petted me 3 times. Now I'm scared. Run back, bark, 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 bark. Then goes back up for another pet. If that happens and dog's conflicted, they don't know what to do. I want to be petted, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Now we'll circle to the human piece, because I think that is probably, to me, more important. We can send a dog into a spiral with our behavior, if a dog into reactivity or confliction, when we move too fast. Movement is a big trigger for reactive dogs. Fast movement of humans, reaching for, walking through the house quickly, that type of a thing. The best thing you can do when you meet a new dog, ignore them and drop treats towards the dog, not near you. They do not need to come to you. Dog learns, person makes good things happen. I can trust this person because this person's not going to reach out to me like a scary monster. But you've got the other emotional piece. You've got the guardians going, why are you not petting my dog? Why are you not petting my dog? That's when you're talking to the guardian and saying, I'm just making friends. I want your dog to know that I'm like the best thing in the world. I make cheese happen and I can be trusted. So you're doing all those things at once, watching the dog's behavior, managing yours, but then comforting the guardians.
It is hard when you come in, especially for that first time, that new client consultation or meet and greet, and the client reaches to drag the dog towards you, right? And I had to put my hands up and I go, no, it's fine. Meeting new people is hard. It takes me a while to warm up and make friends. So it's okay. We just leave them there. And you and I are just going to have this conversation, right? And just focus all direction back on them. Because then it's like, okay, then you are able to accomplish that. If nope, full conversation attention on human. And out of the corner, I may be watching body language, dropping those treats further away from me, and just talking to the person and then explaining, okay, this is what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. And we're just going to be here for just a little bit. We're going to sit and do this. And then that way, whenever they're on camera watching you at your next visit, when they're not there and they see you ignoring the dog and just throwing the treats into the other room, they're already clued into what exactly you're doing and why it's important.
Exactly. And the dog is like, you're safe. I love you. You understand what I'm trying to tell you. And then you'll start to see the dog close that gap between you and them. And then sometimes it may never. And that's okay. It's the dog's choice. As a pet sitter, can I get in here? Can I move the dog out around the house safely? Can I bring them out safely? Can I bring them back in safely? That's the goal. And if it's treats, who cares?
You talked about the goal, and that's just where my brain went, is what's our goal and what are the client's expectations and what's the goal of that visit? Because if we're coming in and we have a dog who is having those conflicted behaviors, who is moving quickly away from us, who's bolting, right, trying to get away from us quickly, maybe a dog walk isn't going to happen for those first couple times, right? So we need to talk with the client and readjust, recalibrate what their expectations are, because that happens so often. I need you for a dog walk, and you're going to dog walk, and I need a dog walk, and you didn't dog walk, and why didn't you dog walk? And it's like, well, did you see the camera, right? Did you see the dog coming for me? And then fleeing for its life. It's like going, okay, like we're going to work on this though, and we're going to talk about the progression that we're making, and maybe it is just backyard play for a little bit, so before we can work up to that full walk.
Exactly. I think the biggest thing is having that conversation with the guardian and saying, does your dog even like walks, or is it you? And
do you even walk the dog?
Yeah. And they're like, well, no, he does. Then tell me, what do you see? Yeah. Not what you think. What do you see? What happens? And then it's giving them different options. And also, too, letting them know the more that we walk your dog in this environment and your dog panics, the worse the behavior is going to get. It's like working a muscle. Then people are like, oh, really? Yes, that is something that I always say, if I'm willing to bet money on it, it's going to happen.
Yep, and because then again, they're finding themselves in a helpless situation of going, no, I don't want to do it. So what do I as a dog have to do to make this stop?
Exactly. And then we're circling back again. Are we giving the dog a choice? And are we, is the guardian basically saying, walk my dog because they want them to get over whatever it is? And that's where we're like, it's not going to.
Yeah.
It's not going to.
Yep. And I love that. What's the purpose of this, right? To what end, right? Because people ask us for dog walks all the time. It's maybe for exercise, enrichment. Maybe it is to get over some quote unquote anxieties that they have around the cars passing by, and really going, okay, I hear what you're saying is you're trying to work on weight management. Well, because of this behavior that we'll work on, let's readdress the weight management, maybe through intensive backyard play or through whatever way. And we can work up to that maybe if we get to that point, but really finding out those alternatives and us sitting down and thinking through, you come to me with a problem. There's not just one solution. I need to be equipped to come up with maybe 3 or 4 things to get to address the problem while working. I say problem that the client comes to us while working towards the behavior that they're maybe interested in.
Exactly. Come out with some, maybe make a digging pit and the dog digs. Maybe they're chasing bacon flavored bubbles in the backyard. You're sending them videos of the dog chasing bubbles. I would love that. I would love to see Eli Joseph chasing bacon bubbles, but
I would love to chase bacon bubbles.
Maybe it's bringing the dog that's dog reactive to, or can't walk in that neighborhood, bringing them to a doggy. Is it doggy spot?
Sniff spot or whatever.
Sniff spot. Where it's completely enclosed. Bringing them, you can now, and I think sniff spot, you can even rent somebody's swimming pool and bring them swimming, or so many things, that options. But usually when you say, hey, why is the dog not liking it? Here's other options. Then most guardians are okay. Now, here's where I want pet sitters to know that people, behavior consultants, we have your back. If you get to a point that they're just like, nope, dig in and say, maybe we need a referral, or maybe you need to talk to someone to address the issue, and know that. I so many times I see pet sitters that are almost kind of in, and the guardian is just rah. Reach out to us. Like I said, if you need a resource, I can email you something, and then you have a resource that you can hand to the guardian to prove, and basically your point that it's not fair to the dog.
Yeah. It is important to have that backup, that second, that third, sometimes fourth opinion necessary in those situations, to be going, it's not just me, because again, we're not combating the fact that they didn't get the walk. Like, we may be combating the fact that this person thinks their dog needs to be the dog walking kind of dog, right? And this is their perception, because growing up, they had the best collie in the world who went with them on walks everywhere, and they're trying to relive those days in their life. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's not about the walk, right? It's about the emotions that they have with this and the lifestyle they think they're trying to live.
They want to be that person that has their dog and the dog. Lassie just doesn't exist. That type of dog just does not exist.
You mentioned two important techniques when we are working with a dog who may have some reactivity, as far as dropping treats further away from us and moving slow in the home. Is there anything else that we need to be aware of if we're in a dog who is displaying some of that body language and that behavior?
I think space, moving slow, space, and turning away from the dog are massive. Just like with humans, we like space. Down here in the South, we have a smaller space bubble, where I always joke in the Northeast, they have a bigger space bubble. They kind of keep more space between. That's just what people know. We hug down here. They don't. So it's just to the dog of what works best for that dog and keeping space. If the dog is stopped, you create space. If the dog creates space, then it's almost like think of two little bubbles that are pushing against each other. Keep that space. And if the dog decides they want to come over and meet you, then you know what? Let them sniff you, pet them once, move your hand. How does the dog respond? If the dog backs up, they really didn't like it. If they push forward and want more pets, then they do. It's letting the dog make that choice and you reinforcing that choice.
Yeah. Again, watching that dog. We've even had to do in some instances when you talk about the kind of the more sound reactivity, sound phobias of going, okay, maybe in the wintertime, I really need to make sure I take my boots off at the door so that when I'm not walking around, I'm not going clomp, 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 hitting the hardwood floors and really making these loud booms as I'm walking, and really just going kind of shrinking into that space and going, what do I do? And it is this kind of feedback mechanism of I do this, dog does that. Okay, if I liked that, because again, if I like that, let me work on that. If the dog reacts in a negative way, I need to then switch course and change. I don't need to continue to push into that.
It's a conversation, just like you would have with a person. It's a conversation. And I'd like to add too, because most people have more than one dog. Mm-hmm. 182 when you're walking in as a pet sitter with multiple dogs is decrease the arousal rate, because that is what can cause multiple dogs to engage in fighting. Decreasing arousal rate is moving slow purposefully, but a lot of times they see people like, oh my God, you're so good. This high-pitched clapping. You can almost see dogs start to vibrate. And when that arousal level increases, you're more likely to engage, where dogs will start to squabble when you come in the house or start to fight over resources or going through narrow openings like doors and things like that. So multiple dogs, keep your arousal rate. Doesn't mean that you don't love them. You're just keeping everybody under threshold and nice and calm.
And, we as pet sitters and dog walkers, we're coming into clients' homes, and the dog may be anxious for whatever reasons or have these reactivities for whatever reason. It may be that this is something that client is intensively working on. It may be that the dog is anxious because now they're home a little bit longer and they don't know quite how to manage themselves, like we talked about earlier. They may also be a little anxious because somebody new is in the home. And so we're constantly managing this from different levels and different perspectives. So for us being in a visit, you talked about it earlier about progress. And I think that is something that we can come really defeated on over time if we don't feel like we're making big leaps and bounds. So how do we either stay motivated or keep the right mindset around making quote unquote progress with a dog or an animal that we're working with?
I think that to identify progress, you need to identify what behavior that you want to see improves. Because it's hard to say you got progress if you don't even know what you're watching, right? And so if you're like, okay, this is what I see from a pet sitter that I want. Understand, though, sometimes what you want to see progress in and the guardian wants to see progress in are two different things, right? So I would say keep what the guardian is saying in mind, but what do you see? Usually it's barking at the door, hiding, things like that, coming back inside. Because, again, you guys have limited time. What can I do to get moving quickly? So identify what you want to have progress on, and then kind of evaluate each visit. Is the behavior getting better? As in, is the barking decreasing? Not happening as much? Only happens when I come in the door instead of nonstop? Is the dog coming in the door, coming in from outside quicker, faster, instantly? Is the dog not hiding, but maybe hanging out in the back part of the living room? That's progress. And if you move and you're having that conversation with the dog where you're giving space and you're rewarding and letting the dog know that you're safe, you will see behavior improve. If you see behavior stay the same or it gets worse, that's when you need to refer out, because there's probably a lot of other underlying things going on in there. That's nothing you've done. It's nothing you've done. there's other variables there that need to probably be addressed.
Right. But some more bigger picture stuff, but keeping in mind too of just it can be good to remind ourselves of kind of where we're starting, what that dog was like, or even what that cat was like when we first started caring for them. I know when I train new employees, sometimes I go into dogs and I'll be like, this is a lot better than it was 2 years ago. Right? Just trust me. Like, we are very happy that this is going on right now, so that they have some perspective too of like, no, this is amazing. The fact that the dog is trusting us to even this level from where we started. Let me show you a video, right? Like, and we have to remind ourselves sometimes too, because we get so in that moment. You're right. We got this time. We've got 30 minutes. We have an hour, and I've got task, and we forget that conversation, that being that living thing that's in here that we need to be connecting with more and going, gosh, man, remember 2 years ago? I've even had that conversations. Been like, Bentley, remember 2 years ago when you would, like, this is wonderful. Thank you for doing this today.
It's true. And while you're doing those tasks, you can pay attention to the dog's behavior and let the guardian know, this is what I saw. Wow. Cheerlead them on, because you want to continue to build that bond between the dog and the guardian. And there's no way, oh my gosh, look what Bentley did today. I'm really shocked. Look, what a good boy. And then they're just like, oh my gosh, yay, Bentley. But then also they realize that you are improving behavior too, and you're trustworthy. That is everything. And it's very reinforcing to the guardian. And again, it's very reinforcing to people like me, the behavior consultant, because now I know that I have a pet sitter that I can recommend and refer to for dogs that have certain issues, and the behavior is going to continue, and the protocol that I recommend is continued. And then once I know that you will follow these protocols, will keep you so busy, you'll be booked out in a year. And then I'll have to find somebody else. Because you guys can only take so much, or you have to hire more people. But it's reinforcing to everybody.
Well, so let's talk about that hiring aspect, because I know dog walking, pet sitting companies, we've got solo sitters, we've got solopreneurs. We do have people who work on teams and have a team approach as well. Sometimes it's a one-for-one model where one employee is taking care of that one dog for however long. A lot of times, though, they're doing a mix and match of depending on somebody's schedule. So maybe we've got this dog's home and they are exhibiting signs of anxiety, but maybe they may be seeing 3 or 4 different people over the course of a vacation or dog walking week. How can we make sure to set up those people and that dog for success if that's the kind of model that business has?
I think the biggest thing is that I actually think that's either or model is a good thing for the dog. So I don't think some people feel, well, multiple pet sitters are coming in to see my dog. I think that's a good thing, because you're exposing the dog to different types of people coming in and out. People that move, everybody moves differently, talks differently. So I think that's a good thing. I would say on the dogs, because communication is key when you have that many people come in and out. If the dog has, like their little report, identify what you guys want to improve, and then maybe have a grading scale. And then that person, every time they go in, is able to say, this is what I saw. And you can kind of see if the behavior is improving. Because if you don't document it, you really don't know. And it becomes hearsay. And then I think it becomes laser focused. Bentley, working on this is what we see. And then from there, if I go in, I can say, oh my gosh, Susie said he did this, but for me, he did this. And then that shows progress. But then again, the power of reinforcement is that every person, regardless of who they are, they go in, they have treats, they respect that conversation between the dog. And they give that dog a choice. It's just going to make the dog more resilient. But if it gets to a point that maybe, say you have 5 different pet sitters going in, 4 doing well, maybe that 5th one is like, Bentley's not doing good with me. I would, instead of saying something's up with Bentley, I would maybe say, is that pet sitter the best environment for Bentley? Mm-hmm. And maybe switch that pet sitter out. That would probably be with somebody else. It's not the pet sitter doing anything wrong with the dog. It's just, there was just some dynamic missing. It's okay.
Yeah.
I don't get along with everybody too. It is what it is. Yeah. And maybe that pet sitter went in and was a little nervous. So give some, instead of saying, well, this pet sitter just needs to keep going until the dog ends up liking her. Again, we circle back around, right?
Yeah.
It's the dog's choice. So play around with that, good communication skills. And then if it's not getting better, refer out.
And I love it because again, we may have a lot of pet sitters are getting some training certifications or going down that road. A lot of other people don't have that skill set, but what we do have are ways of working with dogs to build trust. And I think at the end of the day, that's really our focus of build trust with this dog or this cat, whatever pet I'm working with. And if you do have that team approach, you said communication is key. Is everybody being consistent when they're in there? Or, is everybody on the same page with how we're working with Bentley and know what the goal is? Because if they don't, if we just have 5 or 6 rogue agents in there doing their own thing, shucking and jiving, it's like, well, of course, nothing's going to happen here, right? This is not going to end well for anybody.
It won't. And it takes 2 seconds to document what you see. I'm huge about documentation. I'm massive because how do you know where you're at? How are you going to go someplace if you even know where you're currently at? So I have Google Sheets for everything. And my poor clients, we measure everything. But I think that helps me document progress. And I think that would be a huge piece to make sure that we have consistency with multiple people. And it's a good thing having multiple people come in for the dog. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, Fanna, I'm so thankful to have you on the show and for your encouraging us for that consistency, to be advocates for those dogs, and to know that there is help out there, not just for the pet owners, but for us as well, good people like yourself. So for those who want to reach out, learn more, start diving into this topic for themselves, maybe their team, how best can people get in touch with you and follow along with everything?
Oh my gosh. I obviously have Facebook and Instagram. Fanna Easter is a name that sticks out. So you should easily be able to find me. You can go to my website at positivepooch.net. And you have my email there. I think I even have my cell there. You can reach out. And for those that are maybe new as pet sitters and want to know more about what we talked about, I put a course together for pet sitters. This is a newer course. This is something that I've got out there and I want to measure and see how it goes. But I have other ideas of what I want to do in the summer, to a little bit more of a robust program and more of a certification and more live teaching with me on this. So stay tuned for that. But I think it would be really good to learn more about that. It's a webinar. It's self-paced. I have video. You see all the works. I don't hide anything because I think that's how you learn. You see what goes on. Yeah. So yeah. And just remember, you guys are not out there alone. I want you guys to know, dog trainers and behavior consultants, we are behind you guys and we'll reinforce whatever you need. You don't need to know everything. That's, I think, sometimes a spot that most of us get in. Reach out.
Well, and on that, here in closing, Fanna, if somebody's interested in getting connected with, maybe trying to find a local behavior consultant and a local trainer for them, what are good resources or listings or organizations that they could go to find one close to them?
I would say if you want to look for a really good behavior consultant, the International Association of, it's IAACP, yes, wait, IAABC, my brain. IAABC, and it's a certified dog behavior consultant. And then also to this, I know it as letters. It's the CCPDT. It's the Certification Council of Professional Dog Trainers. They also have a behavior certification also. It's important to say that behavior consultants are totally different than dog trainers. It's a big difference. So those two are very, very safe. And I really big about certifications. Get the certification. Follow somebody with a certification because they've passed some pretty gnarly exams.
Yeah, I love that. And I will have links to all that in the show notes, links to your website, your course, and follow you along with you on social media as well. Fanna, this is absolute pleasure. I'm so appreciative of your time today. So thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. I hope I helped somebody make things just a little bit clearer for the dogs that they work with.
My biggest takeaway from my conversation with Fanna was when she said that dogs should have choices. Letting them choose can make a world of difference in their behavior. How true, especially when we are in situations of working with dogs or working around dogs with reactivity anxiety, and other concerns. When dogs have choices, we build trust with them. It takes working with the human client. It takes partnering with them and everybody in their bubble to be on the same wavelength, using the same language, with the same approach, to really make strides in these efforts. The power of being a pet sitter, the power of being a dog walker, is we get to experience the dog in all sorts of situations. It takes our training, background, understanding, and knowing our limits to make sure that's done safely and appropriately. We want to thank today's sponsors, Time to Pet and Pet Perennials, for making this show possible, and we really want to thank you for listening. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll be back again soon.